Hi guys, I'm Joe from a company called Red Giraffe. And today I'm going to be talking you through the 18 things that you need to have in order to build a successful association website. So this is if you're thinking about or planning on launching a new website soon, or if you just have an existing one and you maybe want to learn a little bit more about what's going on with it. I appreciate this is quite a long, comprehensive list, but trust me, we've launched a hell of a lot of websites over the years, and I've seen how these can go really wrong when people don't kind of do their background research and do these things properly. So yeah, let's dive right in. So the first thing that you want to consider are what are the goals for the new website. So some things to think about here are what are your kind of in-house technical abilities? Do you have a team of people who are quite proficient in managing and updating a website who can look after this? Or is it just kind of one person who is maybe not that technical? In which case you need your website to be very easy to manage and update in-house. You want to be looking at what is the primary purpose of the website. So is that just to kind of have a presence? Is it to generate new leads? Yeah, just have a good think about what is the main goal of the new website. Social integrations are another thing that's important to think about. So do you need your website to kind of show a Twitter feed or connect your LinkedIn account? Just things like that that's worth bearing in mind before you get started. Again, are you going to have like a blog or a newsreel on your website? Or something to show latest projects or things you've been involved with. Another important consideration is, do you want e-commerce on the website? So that could be taking kind of member fees, that could be selling products, selling digital downloads. So anything like that is really important to have a think about. And just any other integrations that you want to know at this stage. So do you want your website maybe to integrate with a CRM system? Anything else that you think is going to be important before you get started? Because it's much easier to build that in from the start than try and plug it into something after that maybe wasn't compatible. Cool. So number 2, establish a budget. This is, I know, a very, very difficult thing. From when we've done our research, we found that giving 10 different agencies the exact same brief, we got quotes back from between £500 all the way up to £10,000. So I suppose that the question really is not what is the right amount to pay for a website, but how much do you feel comfortable spending on a website? It's a bit like commissioning an artist to create a bespoke bit of art for you. So really looking at how much can you afford and how much do you feel comfortable spending? But I can give you a rough indication of what's the typical cost. So I mean, to a degree, yes, you do get what you pay for. So I wouldn't personally spend under £1,500 on a new website. Under £1,500, someone is either majorly cutting corners or just desperate for your money, and you've got to ask why. So at the £1,500 end of the spectrum, you're getting probably a freelancer or a one-man band. They're probably going to be using free or low-grade plugins and themes on your website. At that price, they're probably recycling templates or just customizing a pre-existing theme. And they're probably remote working. So I know we're all kind of remote working at the moment, but long term, it's unlikely they're going to have an office with meeting rooms and things where you can meet them. And again, the problem with free plugins is they might work fine now in the moment, but you've got to ask, is the developer of that plugin going to continue supporting and upgrading it if you haven't paid for it? Probably not. Right at the opposite end of the spectrum, you're looking at around £10,000 for a website. So this is more like an established city agency in London or another big city with a big sort of flashy offices. They're going to be using premium plugins and themes. The whole design is going to be bespoke. And you're probably getting some advanced kind of custom editions in that. So there's some nice hand-drawn graphics and illustrations. Little touches that just really bring your website to life. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an indication of what you should be spending. Of course, your average is going to be around £3,000 to £4,000 for a new website. But anywhere within this spectrum, I'd say you can expect to spend. Okay, number 3, what are you looking for in an agency? So this is really important. When you're choosing a new partner, you need to have a good understanding of what it is you're actually looking for in that partner. So of course, location. Do you want someone who's local to you, who you can go in and meet in person? What relevant experience do they have? Is it important that they've worked on a similar project to you? Portfolio strength is of course important. So you want to have a look through their portfolio, make sure you like their work, it's good quality. You want to see a good kind of bank of case studies and testimonials. Team size is maybe important as well to you. So some agencies are just 1 or 2 people. Is that an issue to you? Or do you want an agency where you know that if there's only a couple of people and they go on holiday, there's still people there that can look after your website? In-house staff is very important. So some agencies will ship stuff out to like the Far East and India, Pakistan, or maybe Europe as well. That's not a problem to some people, but other people say, no, we want an agency where their whole team is based in-house. Length of time in business is another critical factor, because you want to see they've been going a few years and they've proven themselves. And lastly, what are their service level agreements? So if there's a problem, if you need something looked at in an urgency, how quickly are they going to get back to you? And do they have written SLAs that you can look at and agree on? Okay, number 4, what happens if the agency goes bust? So I have seen this happen before, and it can be quite messy if an agency goes bust and you're suddenly locked out of everything and you've got no access to your website, really. So you want to know that you've got full admin access to the website. You've got full cPanel or control panel access, which is where the website is hosted. You want to know that ideally your website is built on open source software, so something like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, which means that, you know, of course, if the agency has built your website in their own custom software and they go bust, you're not going to have access to that. You can't take it anywhere. And finally, I'd want to know that if they were going bust, would they do the right thing and help you migrate that website onto another agency? You don't want to find that they go bust and just shut down overnight and you've lost everything. So really important, you're asking these questions at the start and taking that into consideration. Okay, 5th point, what are your fears and concerns? So it's really a good idea just to write down a list of all the things that may be worrying you about launching a new website before you start speaking to agencies. So this could be things like, are you going to be tied into any fixed term contracts? Are you worried about losing your SEO rankings if you've built up a good kind of ranking on Google? Maybe you're concerned about spiraling costs or the cost jumping up significantly from what you've initially agreed. Always a worry is, you know, are there potentially going to be website downtime when you launch a new website, or issues with that? And what happens if you're, you know, creating a new design with an agency and you're not happy with the design? So again, it's important to have these kind of discussions with your agency before you sign up and go ahead. 6, getting clarity on content, which is probably the number 1 area where I see projects go wrong. So before you start engaging with an agency, very important to think about who is going to provide the images. You know, do you want the agency to, or are you going to find the images yourself? Who will write the text? Quite often I see, you know, the clients think we're going to write the text, but they've not discussed that with us, and we think they're going to give us the text, but they just haven't factored that into the build. So really important that you have a good think about that first. Who will review the content internally? Again, I see this can be quite a big problem if we have one person who's managing the build and then they give it to the team to review, like their colleagues or their management team. And what management are coming back with is completely different with what the project manager has liaised with us. So really important to have that conversation in-house before you start working with an agency. Who is it that's actually going to review the website and review the content and manage this build? Again, collecting everything you need for the build. So if you've got any client logos or case studies or reviews, you want to have that ready to go. And finally, you want to agree a style in-house. So you don't want your person who's kind of liaising with the agency agreeing with a style, signing off on the design, and then right at the end of the build, they pass it over to management, and management say, oh no, I hate it. This is not the style that I want to see for our brand at all. So it can get very messy when that happens. Really important that you, as a team in-house, just agree how you want this site to look before you start working. Okay, point number 7 is make sure you've got some killer questions written down so you can ask your agency before you start working. And again, if you can see a detailed scope of exactly what's provided first, this is really going to help you out. So an example of some questions you might want to ask is, can you easily make changes to your website? Are you going to be given full admin access? Who owns the website? Is it you? Do they own it? Do they own it but you have exclusive rights to it? All things that you definitely want to know. Ongoing costs, very important. You get a very clear idea of what those are going to be. Hosting specs, so we'll cover that a bit later, but you want to know what the hosting looks like. Are there any sort of usage limits? And finally, what is the agency's approach to SEO? So how do they ensure you're not going to lose rankings? Are they going to get the whole site Google ready and optimized for you, or do they expect you guys to do that in-house? Okay, so point number 8, you want to make sure the website is future-proofed. So I would expect the lifespan of a modern website to be maybe 4 to 6 years before it's ready for an upgrade. But of course, you want to make sure that you're not going to spend thousands of pounds on a website only to find you've outgrown it in a year or two. So it's good to get an understanding of which themes and plugins are used. You want to know that this website can accommodate future additions. You want to know that it's easy to update your brand and theme design. So if you change your logo and your colors in a couple of years' time, you don't want to have to be spending a lot of money reflecting that on the website. It should be easy to make those changes. You want to know that it's easy to change pages and layouts and change the menu of your website. And finally, you want to know this is fully responsive. So we don't know what screen size phones are going to come out with in a year or two. So we want to know this website can adapt to whatever device comes out in the next few years. We want to know it's flexible, basically. Okay, moving on. So getting GDPR compliant, because you remember when GDPR was the biggest headache we all had. So yeah, really important your website is GDPR compliant. That means you need a cookie policy on there and a notice that says this website uses cookies. You want to have a privacy policy on there, which just tells your users how you handle and store data. A website terms of use policy is really important, which basically tells people they're agreeing to use this website on your terms. So they're not going to sue you if the website doesn't comply or conform with how they expect it to. You want what's called an SSL certificate, which means your user's data is encrypted. Definitely you want to have a website firewall and encryption on there to show that the website generally is free of malware and protected. Again, you want to ask your agency, is that user data going to be stored on the website? Or is that going to be just passed over to you by email and not stored anywhere? And finally, can your agency provide these policies for you, or are you expected to go and get those policies written up? Okay, so really important, I know we touched on this before, but is the website SEO ready? So a good agency will ensure that it is, but some agencies just won't do it. They'll just expect you to kind of get that all done your end. So as an overview, you want to make sure all the meta titles and meta descriptions are written, that all of your images are correctly alt tagged. You want to have what's called an XML sitemap, which is basically a sitemap for search engines. And we want to make sure this sitemap has been submitted to Google Search Console and Bing. And finally, really important, we want our redirect set up, which means if you had an old website, an old page on your old website, which is no longer going to be present on the new website, we need to make sure a redirect is set up to tell Google this old page doesn't exist anymore, send our users here. If you don't do that, you'll get something called 404 errors, and then you're in a bit of trouble because Google really doesn't like to see that. So good to ask all of these questions to your agency before you go ahead with launching a new site. Okay, so number 11, planning the user journey. So if you think about a physical shop, like a supermarket, when you walk in, you'll have specific items placed logistically around the store, which are designed to guide people through that shop and take them to the right place. So it's not too dissimilar on your website. We want to know who are the primary people coming to the website, what's your primary call to action. So this could be something like shop now or get in touch or speak to an advisor. But it is important we think about what is the primary thing we want them to do when they're on the website. A secondary call to action is really important because that means what do we want our users to do if they're not yet ready to buy from you? So this could be read reviews, view case studies, view our previous work, learn more about us, but just something there to guide them in case they're not yet ready to become a client. Really important we think about how we're going to build trust. So again, are we going to have reviews, case studies, loads of things. We'll come on to more of that in a second, but it is worth considering how we build that trust so that when a potential customer lands on your website, they think, yeah, this seems like a good fit in terms of what I'm looking for. USP, so what makes you special and unique is really important that we communicate this on your website. This needs to be deeper than just customer service and experience because everybody says that. So really thinking about what it is that makes you special and different from your competitors. And finally, thinking about how we're going to build engagement on the website. So this could be things like, do you have white papers or case studies people can download? Have you got videos or media? A nice meet the team section. So how is it you're going to get these people and engage with them so the site is interesting for them to use? Cool, so number 12, really important, find inspiration websites. So this is websites that you love the look and feel of and you'd like your website to kind of come up with something similar. So this could be terms of designs and styles that you like. Maybe there's specific functionality that you like, any fonts that you love or images or style of images you love. But think outside the box with this one. So it doesn't need to be limited to your industry specifically. Actually, it's better that you don't limit it to your industry because you want to say, I want to see all sites that I love, not just association websites that I love. But it is good if you can be kind of consistent in the things you love. So, when we ask our clients for this, sometimes we'll see a very kind of light, clean, white website that someone loves, and then they'll also show us a very dark, heavy, edgy website that they love. And we're saying, well, we want to get an understanding as an agency of the kind of thing that you'd love your website to be like, and you're showing us very conflicting opposite things. So try and have a consistency in what you love in order to help define how you want your website to look. And then, of course, very importantly, agree this with your team. You want the whole team and the people that are going to be signing this off to all agree with the kind of look and feel of how your website should go. And finally, look for the best of the best. So don't just show us a website that you like, because we don't want to build another average website. We want to say, show us the best of the best. So find things that you really love, that you think are just absolutely outstanding and could win awards for how good they are. And you want your website to emulate that, really. Okay, so really important, number 13, is do a competitor analysis. So look at other associations out there and say, what good things are they saying or are they doing that we can pitch? So, or borrow or take inspiration from. So are there any key points or USPs that stand out? Have they got any winning call to actions that you can have on your website? Do they offer a guarantee that maybe you could offer something similar? And have they got anything cool that really kind of builds trust or engagement? And you'd be really surprised the kind of difference this makes of the things you'll find when you start looking at what everyone else is doing. So number 14, so you might want to add a membership section onto your website. So this means a kind of private area where people are going to log in and see exclusive content. So things to think about are, how will your users sign up? Is it going to be fully automated? Do they have to be approved? Have you got somebody in-house who's going to kind of manually assign a login for them? Who's going to manage these users? So this means, again, are you guys going to manage users and set them up with an account? Who's going to help them out when they're stuck? Maybe they need their password resetting. It's good to assign somebody in-house now and to think about that now before you just go all guns blazing building this state-of-the-art membership site and then don't stop to consider who's actually going to run and manage it. Payments is an important thing to think about if it's a paid membership. So again, is this all taken automatically? Are you going to manually invoice them and charge them? All good things to have a think about how you want this to work before you approach an agency and ask them this. Who's going to police and monitor this? So you want to know, if you've got like a comments thread, who's going to remove spam comments or approve comments? Who's going to kind of kick people off the site if they're breaching your rules? Just good to have a think about that. And finally, a really important thing to ask your agency is, what does this data protection and security look like? So if you've got potentially hundreds of people registering on your site and giving you logins and passwords and maybe uploading data identification documents, you want to know this data is secure and protected. Okay, so number 15, how are you going to build trust on your new site? So some of the top ways of doing this, professional photos and videos are really nice, just to show that you're an established team and give people show them the human side of your association. And meet the team page is always lovely to kind of show people who the team is, who you guys are, and that you're humans, you're real people. An SSL certificate is really important because if you don't have that, it's going to say your site is insecure. Testimonials and case studies are really good to just build trust and give people that proof. Ratings, so if you've got like a Trustpilot account or anything like that, it's good to kind of embed that on your site. If you've got client logos, so if you work with clients that people have heard of, again, just having that brand association with them is really good. So of course, get the permission and show those client logos on your site. And any partner logos. If you're partnered with any big companies that people recognize, just show those logos on your site, again with permission, because it just helps build trust. Okay, we're getting there. So number 16, how will you drive traffic to your site? So this is really important. A lot of people build a lovely new website, spend a lot of money on it, and then they don't think about how they're going to actually send people onto the site. And if you don't do that, then your website's not going to be a success, because no matter how nice the site is, no one's going to see it. So some key ways of driving traffic to your site, you've got search engine optimization, which is building up your organic listings. You've got Google AdWords, which is paid traffic to your site. Social media, so things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Lead funnels, which is this where someone downloads something on your website, you get their email address, and then you automatically send them content over a period of time and nurture that lead into a prospect. Webinars are a great way of, just getting introductions to people and getting your brand out there. And finally, email campaigns and email marketing, which is still a really good way of driving people to your site if it's done properly. Number 17, hosting. So a very, very important, but a lot of people don't think about this. So if the agency is going to be hosting your website for you, you want to think about, is this website going to be hosted in the UK, which is quite important with Brexit now. A lot of companies are asking for this. Is the hosting using cloud servers? So you want to know that if a server blows up or catches fire or shuts down, your website's not going to drop offline. So with cloud hosting, that doesn't happen because it's hosted on a number of servers and links between the lot of them. So if that server blows up, your site doesn't go down. Auto scaling is really important. What that means is if you suddenly get 100,000 people land on your website at the exact same time, maybe you run a promotion and someone really popular, some celebrity has retweeted it, you want to know your website is not going to crash because it's had too much traffic. You want to know what the uptime of that hosting looks like. So basically how long your website is going to stay online for, and can the agency back that up with proof? So for example, we guarantee that your website is going to be up and online for 99.99% of the time, and we can show you the logs to prove that. So I imagine a good agency could do the same. You want to know, are you on a shared or private server, which means are you sharing server space with thousands of other people, or does that agency have its own private server that it's just going to be their clients on? It's good to ask about what security features their hosting has and whether they include malware scanning with that hosting. And really important is what features they have to protect against what's called a denial of service attack, which is where a hacker will send millions and millions of people onto your website at the same time in an event to crash it and bring it down. And finally, do you have access to control panel? So some agencies don't do this. They say, no, you can't have access to your cPanel or control panel. It's quite important you do get that access, so it's good to find that out now. Okay, and lastly, your common mistakes. So this is where I see a lot of projects go wrong because people just haven't factored these things in. So the biggest one is not enough time allocated to the project. People just don't realize how much time it's going to take to actually do this. To a lower budget. So sometimes people want the earth, but they just haven't factored in enough money for it. And of course, you're never going to get the quality if you haven't allocated enough money to do this properly. Using a freelancer or one-man band is another area where people go wrong. So, with the best will in the world, that freelancer might be brilliant until they're not, So no matter how good they are, eventually they're going to get sick or take a holiday, or, maybe a family member gets sick and they've got to take time out. And then suddenly your website urgently needs something doing to it, and that guy you trusted just isn't there anymore. They're just off grid. Whereas that just doesn't happen with an agency and you've got a team of people looking after you. Lack of clarity or vision. So hopefully this presentation has given you some ideas around that, but sometimes people know they want a new website, but they don't know how it should look, how it should function, what they want it to do. And then of course that just leads to frustrations down the line when they haven't factored in a clear clarity or vision on what their new website should look like. Lost access to their current website. So sometimes people just have no access to their current website, or crucially where their domain or website address is hosted. It's not the end of the world if we can't access your current website, but you cannot launch a new website if you don't have access to your URL or your website's domain. So it's really important you find that. And another big mistake is where what we call decisions made by committee. So one person wants one thing, the agency goes and does it, and then the rest of the team says, no, we want something completely different. And then you've got to start redoing all that work, and the whole project just gets really, really messy. So I would say allocate a project manager to this, and just assign a few key people that you agree on who are going to review and approve that content with that project manager. But just don't give it out to the entire team, because you're going to get 100 responses coming back of one person likes one thing, another person likes another thing. You've just got to accept you're never going to please anyone, and you've just got to trust the team that's looking after this. So that is pretty much everything that you want to consider. I know there's a lot there, but can cause real headaches down the line if you don't factor this in. So just go through this again, have a good think about, what you're looking for, get clarity on your project, what are the key questions to ask your agency. If you've still got questions around any of this stuff, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you free of charge and just, talk about what you should be looking for. Is you just go to this link, pop something in my calendar at a time that works for you, works for you. And yeah, happy to set up a call and answer any of those questions. So I hope that helps, guys. And yeah, good luck if you are launching a website soon.